Hello, I'm Douglas Maddy and welcome to Altered Perceptions. In this video I'm going to be reacting to Joe Rogan and Derren Brown, The Idea of Happiness. Let's have a look at the video and make ourselves a little bit more happy.
Why did you write a book about happiness?
I wrote a book about happiness because the Stoics had really resonated with me. I studied law, right? I was supposed to be a lawyer, and I graduated, and I kind of was living in Bristol, this lovely city in England, and making my living as a magician because that was the hobby that I'd started. And I was just kind of thinking, well, I need to, some point, will this just grow into a job? I don't know, but I know that my priorities are just kind of, I want my life, my days to feel like this is good, everything's in the right place, and this is kind of an enjoyable and worthwhile pastime or worthwhile existence. And I never really thought beyond that. So I've never had any kind of ambition, genuinely, of any sort, which is why, I'm not of a whole goal setting thing particularly. So, but the trouble with thinking like that as you grow up and become successful with what you do is you start to feel like a kid, like everyone else is a grown up and you're the kid, and you're slightly embarrassed that you don't seem to care enough about the things that everybody else cares about, the businessy things and the viewing figures and my interest was genuinely, am I enjoying what I'm doing and is it worthwhile? And then I read the Stoics, and although that's not like their central message, it's a big part of what they write about, not trying to control things that are out of your control, not attaching yourself to things that leave you kind of emotionally kind of vulnerable. And just your relationship to the present moment and so on, and it really resonated. So I read a lot, and it took me off into other directions. And I started writing, and I wrote this book on happiness. It took me 3 years to write it while I was on tour. So 3 years, but blocks of writing, not like 3 solid years. And also that meant by the end of it, I kind of had grown and changed and felt differently. And I think for anyone that knows about Stoicism, and it's an immensely valuable resource in terms of, if what you want is a sense of feeling centered and a kind of emotional robustness in your life, and if you suffer from anxiety and so on, it's phenomenal. I think that where it slightly doesn't deliver is the importance of anxiety. It's all about avoiding anxiety. Their image of happiness was a sort of tranquility, avoiding disturbance. But actually, of course, disturbance is really important. Anxiety is important in life, because how do you change? How do you grow? Other than, unless some anxiety triggers that, lets you know that something's wrong.
Yeah, I agree with that, because, I think happiness is overrated. And I think that we have emotions to let us know, to inform us of what to do next. And so each emotion is a valid emotion, whether it's uncomfortable or not. And so to want to discard the other emotions and prioritize happiness over the other ones is kind of, it's not a great idea to do it. Every emotion is valuable. It's there to teach us something, and it's there to guide and alter our behavior. And it's there, even pain is there to let us know to pay attention to something, that something needs to be dealt with, that something's not quite right, and that we need to address it before it gets worse. So yeah, I agree with them on that. And Stoicism is very good. I've looked at it myself, and it can be, you distinguish between pain and actual suffering. Pain is what you actually feel, and the suffering is the story that you put on top of the pain. And you can alleviate a lot of suffering just by changing the story, like we spoke about. The Serenity Prayer is a very good way of establishing the boundary between what you're in control of and what you're not in control of. And when you waste your emotional energy on things that you're not in control of, you tend to suffer. And when you focus your attention on the things that are within your realm of control, it empowers you, and you begin to take charge of what you are capable of doing something about. And it's not so much happiness, it's more kind of fulfillment. And
Yes.
If we just look for security all the time, and I say this because I know I'm like this. Like, this is my problem, is that I'm very good at avoiding stress, very good at avoiding anxiety. But the danger is, am I going to grow, or I'm just going to be too comfortable? That's not necessarily a good thing. So yeah, by the end of the book, I kind of could feel the edges of Stoicism in terms of the importance of anxiety, and and not just living too comfortably, but it is and that's not, they were movers and shakers. Like, there were people that changed the world. Marcus Aurelius, the greatest philosopher king, really. He was the emperor, most powerful man that ever was probably ruled the earth, and was one of the great Stoics. So they're not like, it's not a recipe for complacency, which it can often sound like when you talk about this kind of tranquility and non-attachment. But it's a very robust kind of language. They talk about being like a rock where the waves are lashing against you. And I prefer the image of a sort of, I don't know if you know Martha Nussbaum, who's a American philosopher who writes a lot about these things, but she talks about being more porous, like a rock that the waves, the water can move through. And I think that's a more helpful image. I think that's a good way, I think, of stepping out into life, as if you can have a sort of a robustness, but at the same time a kind of an easy, porous relationship with what's going on. That gives you that easier relationship to fate and fortune and all those things that they used to honor and recognize so much more than we do now, because we don't read tragedy, so we don't think in terms of those things. It's all just, pride and hubris now that they had lessons about back then. And but I think that's a good starting point for life. So I wrote this book, Happy. It's actually just become available in the US on Amazon. I don't think you find it in any bookshops, but because of I'm hopefully doing a Broadway show next year, and these Netflix specials and things that are, so it is now available.
I think the reason why we're looking at this video and why we're discussing this on the channel is because the further you go back in time, magic kind of becomes synonymous with mysticism and storytelling. And if you do something, doing a magic trick, so much of it is the story aspect of it and people's perceptions. And so the moment that you delve into trying to improve magic, you're trying to look at the circumstances and the human behaviours that would be indicative of a magical experience, whether that's happened or not, whether it's hypnosis or real magic tricks, or whether it's just storytelling. And so they're very synonymous, magic and mysticism, as you go back further in time. And although today's magic is tricks and props and all that kind of stuff, they are kind of related to each other in that way.
And ironically, the moment I finished writing it, I was out giving talks on happiness, feeling oddly sad, and I couldn't work out why. And it was because this amazing 3-year writing project had ended, and I realized, the importance of some kind of creative pursuit or something that brings you out of yourself is so important.
That's fascinating, that in the embracing of the anxiety, of the difficulty of the task, and finding upon its completion, that you feel sad.
Felt oddly sad.
Well, it's kind of proof of concept then.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what you're saying is like in this theme that you keep saying over and over again, that putting yourself into something bigger than you, something that you're attempting to work through, and that through this difficulty and all the struggle and trying to put this you gain some sort of intangible benefit from this.
You feel like you seem like you're someone that seeks out those things. You seem like you've
This is all talking about creating like a manageable challenge for yourself. If you don't challenge yourself, you'll never learn and grow. And if you challenge yourself too much, then it gets too stressful and you can't deal with it. So it's all about finding something that exceeds your personal limitations. And so you keep pushing and pushing gradually against it. Bodybuilders do this. They go into the gym, they lift a heavy weight, they go and they have nutrition and they have rest and recoveries to allow the muscle to have the nutrients and the time to regrow, and then they come back in and try and lift a heavier weight than they did previously. If they try and lift a weight that's too heavy, then they're just going to damage themselves. If they don't lift any weight, their muscles are just going to deteriorate. And it's kind of the same with the emotional immune system. You've always got to be trying new things. And so when you're doing magic tricks or anything in life, it's sort of like it's always good to test the boundaries of what you're capable of doing, because you might surprise yourself, and that's when you get really happy because you exceed your own expectation. And it's very some of the best times I've had are when I thought I couldn't do something and then I could. And it's just like, oh my God, you impress yourself. And it's an interesting journey to be able to not be able to do something, believe that you could never do it, and then in the next segment to be able to do it effortlessly and be that person. As I've said before, it's a transformation process.
Always immerse yourself fully in things that would do that.
Yes, I'm a firm believer in the importance of difficult tasks.
Yeah.
I think seeking comfort is one of the worst things a person can do in terms of achieving overall happiness. I think overall happiness, a lot of it comes through this amazing sense of wonder and the unknown and possibilities and working towards things with this embracing of, you know, having no idea what the result is going to be, no idea where this is going to go, and being genuinely nervous about it every step of the way.
And do you find that, because normally having the language for something means that it doesn't come naturally, because if that came entirely naturally, or the things I'm saying, if they completely just, I'd always been like that, you wouldn't have the language, because they'd just be entirely unconscious. So you found, this is stuff that you've found and then learned to articulate, but because it's not an easy thing, it's not an intuitive thing, that maybe life is essentially difficult, and these lovely happy moments we have are wonderful, but they're not the central force of life, which is that it is difficult. And if you want a philosophy of life, it has to work at the difficult moments, doesn't it? Otherwise, it's not really going to support you.
Yeah, the thing that I'd say about this, and Jordan Peterson, and there's been various other people that have done a lot of work on this, say that life is suffering, and you kind of accept that, but then it's to find the meaning in the suffering, and that's where you overcome it. So, say if you do suffer from anxiety, instead of setting up the situation where you never put yourself in a situation of anxiety, what you do is you challenge yourself so that you say, right, okay, I'm experiencing anxiety now, and this could be with the stage fright if you're going onto stage, or if you've you're doing something that's outside of your comfort zone, or another way of putting it is your familiarity zone. If you do something that's unfamiliar to you, that you go into the world of uncertainty. If you come out with this like anxiety or this neuroticism or something like that, the best thing to do is not to shy away from it. The best thing to do is to be able to recognize and accept it, and realize that you are better than that, and that you have the potential to overcome that, and that you have the courage to break through the anxiety. So it's not that anxiety doesn't exist and you try and avoid it. You acknowledge it, accept it, embrace it, and then you say, yeah, this is going to be difficult, but I'm better than that, and I'm more courageous than that. And most people wouldn't do this, but what am I going to do? And that makes you, that getting the ego to work for you instead of against you is, and your fear of what you could do instead of avoiding what you don't want to do, makes all the difference in the progress that you make in any area of life.
I think it's also the attitude in which you embrace those difficult moments and how you approach them. You know, if you relish them and understand that there's going to be some genuine benefit from getting through these. And whether it's a physical thing or a mental thing, whether it's a creative thing, whatever it is that's difficult, like just embrace this massive struggle and enjoy this, like just the puzzle of it all, the majesty of the unknown. And then when you get through it on the other end, you get a different level of happiness. Yeah, you get this powerful earned happiness
because you've grown. Yeah, because you've grown and you've moved forward, and you don't you don't cross the road on your own without having to let go of your mother's hand at some point.
Yeah.
This is the death and resurrection, isn't it? That's why these myths do have some resonance. Something has to die before something new can grow. Something has to be let go of in order to step forward. So if you're going to grow, there has to be anxiety and disturbance and some sort of death in the metaphorical sense.
Yeah,
but that's tough. It doesn't come easily.
No, it doesn't come easily. But that's also what's beautiful about it. If it just came easily, I don't think it would be appreciated.
Exactly. And you wouldn't be doing it.
And there's all this resistance to even engage in it in the first place. I mean, it's hard to write the first word of a book, right? The first word, sometimes you're just sitting there, or anything you're trying to do. Get it, the first step of a 10-mile run. All those things are the most difficult thing. Once you're going, it's not nearly as hard. It's getting going. There's something about overcoming all this anticipation and all the weirdness of it all, you know. And then once you do it and you realize you can do it, it enriches you in all your future attempts.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And we're going to do a course called Making a Magician, and it's taking somebody that's never done a magic trick in their life to making them a really confident magician. And that's one of the reasons why we're going into this in the videos that we're doing, because you have to let go of what it's essentially is. It's a change of identity. A bit like the hungry caterpillar, when he's a caterpillar and then he's a beautiful butterfly. It's sort of like you go from thinking, oh, I could never do that, that looks impossible, to thinking, hang on a minute, I could do that, and that could be me doing that. And once you, we're going to make these videos to kind of help you transition from being somebody that thinks, oh, I could never do that, to somebody that says, I can do that. Because what it's doing is it's taking something that you're uncertain about and you're becoming certain, so that it increases your domain of competence. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and you'll be notified of our latest videos.